Welcome to SYNC-O-WICZ, hosted by the fearless Linda SYNC-O-WICZ. She's syncing you up with the latest in election integrity, from breaking headlines to critical updates you won't hear anywhere else. With Linda, it's facts first as she leads the fight for one vote for one legal voter. Stay informed, stay empowered. Let's jump in.
Hi, and welcome to SYNC-O-WICZ. My name is Linda SYNC-O-WICZ. I'm the founder and CEO of Fight Voter Fraud. I want to thank all of you that are watching us on OBBM Network TV. And my guest this week is Greg Stenstrom. He will be on a little further into the show than we normally have our guests. So we're going to start off with our rundown being Arizona is one of the states we're going to talk about, Massachusetts, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, Texas. Then we're going to go to our voting terms and vocabulary. We'll have our trivia question. Then we'll go to our national news, our vote notes, and at the end, you will have my final thoughts. So we're going to start off with Arizona. And this is from KJZZ from Phoenix, and it's from November 24th. Clean Elections says independent party name change will lead to voter confusion. Now, Citizen Clean Elections Commission is calling on the Secretary of State, Adrian Fontes, to reverse a decision allowing one of the state's newest political parties to rebrand itself. Mass voter confusion and logistical problems will ensue for election officials. In October, Fontes approved former Phoenix Mayor Paul Johnson's request for the No Labels Party in Arizona to become the Arizona Independent Party. Now, 34% of the voters are independent, meaning they are not registered with any specific party and will be confused. So No Labels has 42,777 members, while independents are the second largest group in Arizona with 1.5 million. Fontes refuses to change his mind. So there is going to be a lot of confusion. The law isn't clear, so there's lots of issues, and legal options are on the table. I guess it's going to be a little messy. Now we're going to go to Massachusetts. This is from Boston 25 News from November 25th, 2025. Ballot question volume creating unease among top Massachusetts officials. Now, we all know what kind of state Massachusetts is, right? Okay. Top Beacon Hill Democrats raise concerns about special interest groups that are pushing potential voter referendums to bypass the traditional legislative process. Now, the Attorney General for Massachusetts is Adrian Campbell, has already certified 44 potential questions, and at least 10 campaigns say they have cleared the hefty signature gathering requirements for the 2026 ballot. House Speaker Ron Mariano is concerned about all of them. Senate President Karen Spilka wants transparency to find out who is behind the funding of the paid signature gatherers. How dare the people of Massachusetts want to bypass the legislature? They want accountability too. Go figure. Now we're going to go on to North Carolina. This is from 13 News Now, and this is from November 24th, 2024. North Carolina mails notices to over 73,000 voters to fix the registration records. The North Carolina Board of Elections mailed another round of notices to the 1,000 voters whose voter registration are missing key identification information. The effort is part of the Registration Repair Project, a statewide initiative to ensure voter records comply with state and federal requirements. Now, there's three ways to fix the issues. One is by mail. They fill out the form that came with the letter and send it back in the postage paid envelope. They can do it online by going to payments.ncdot.gov, or they can go in person to their county board of elections. Now, they can also follow up online by using ncsbe.gov/registration repair. Now, the database is being updated daily. So if voters don't respond, they can still vote, but it'll be provisionally. The poll books will be flagged for the voters that are affected, and they are going to require your driver's license or the last four of your social security number when they vote. Once it's verified, the provisional ballots will then be counted. Now we're going to go on to Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania, the source is from VoteBeat, and it's from November 25th, 2025. Man accused of double voting in 2020 election says Trump pardon applies to him. The man was charged with voting twice in the 2020 election, has adopted a novel legal argument that he's covered by the pardon that President Trump granted to his allies who attempted to reverse the 2020 election loss. Now, obviously, this particular article is leaning a particular way. So federal prosecutors charged Matthew Lias in September with double voting in the November 2020 election. U.S. Attorney for Eastern District of Pennsylvania alleges that Lias moved in August 2020 to Florida, and he voted in person there, and he voted by mail in Bucks County, Pennsylvania. Both votes were allegedly for Trump. Now, Trump issued a pardon of 77 people, including members of his legal team and so-called fake electors, for their conduct in connection with the 2020 election. Lias's attorney says the pardon applies to his client. The White House press office did not respond for comment, nor did a spokesperson for the U.S. Attorney's Office. Ultimately, it'll be left up to the judge in the case to decide if the pardon applies. I guess we'll need to keep an eye on this one. Can't make this stuff up. Now we're going to go on to Texas. The Texas Tribune from November 24th, 2025. Webb County judge disputes allegation that he violated federal law to dodge Texas resign to run rule. Tano Tijerina, he is a county judge, has been exploring a run for the 28th Congressional District, which runs from San Antonio to the border and all of Webb County. A complaint filed by an author and former ethics professor, Celia Martinez of San Antonio, alleges that Tijerina has improperly kept his campaign, quote, under the guise of exploratory committee, unquote, because he wants to avoid triggering the Texas Constitution's resign to run provision. The law requires local officials automatically to resign their seat if they announce their candidacy for another position when they still have more than a year and 30 days left in the term. Now, December 1st is the deadline. Tijerina disagrees. He alleges the complaint was coordinated by the Democratic Campaign Committee, the House Democrats' campaign arm, and amounts to, quote, a coordinated smear campaign by the far left opposition, unquote. Now, the FEC, the Federal Election Commission, you have to file within 15 days of becoming a candidate. The current Democratic Congressman Cuellar has legal troubles of his own with his trial, which begins in April, for bribery and money laundering. He was reelected to his 11th term by a slim margin. FYI, Judge Tano Tijerina was a Democrat, but he also had switched to Republican in December of 2014. Lots of stuff going on there with Texas. Okay, so now we're going to go on to our voting terms and elections. This is from the usfoundation.org. Our term of the week is going to be overseas absentee voting / voting from abroad. Now, voters who reside or are temporarily outside the United States have their voting rights protected by the Uniformed and Overseas Citizen Absentee Voting Act. Overseas voters are entitled to register and vote by absentee ballot in federal elections when they apply using the special federal form. One form submitted annually functions as a simultaneous registration and ballot request. So that's how that works. And anybody abroad, they can only vote in federal elections. Now we're going to go to our trivia question. Our trivia question of the week. All the way back in 1800, the results of the U.S. presidential election were decided by a contingent election in the outgoing House of Representatives. What man ultimately won this election? Now we're going to go to a quick break and we'll be right back.
At Fight Voter Fraud, we work to ensure every legal vote is counted, and no unlawful vote ever diminishes the voice of we the people. We're fighting for you, in courtrooms and communities nationwide, to protect transparency, accountability, and fairness in every election. Our mission is simple: one vote for one legal voter. This is our country, this is our vote, let's protect it together.
Hi, and welcome back to SYNC-O-WICZ. I left you at the break with our trivia question. Again, our trivia question of the week is all the way back in 1800. The results of the U.S. presidential election were decided by a contingent election in the outgoing House of Representatives. What man ultimately won this election? And the answer is Thomas Jefferson. So now we're going to go to national news. The source is Signal in Akron, and this is from November 24th, 2025. More than 164 absentee provisional ballots were rejected in Summit County. Now, Ohio's Summit County Board of Elections rejected 64 absentee mail-in ballots and over 100 provisional ballots for the November 4th election. Follow-up questions at the November 18th election. Is it the fault of the absentee voter if they mailed the ballot before the required postmark date, but it arrived more than 4 days after Election Day? Is this due to mail service delivery wait times increasing? I don't know. That's kind of crazy. It shouldn't take more than 4 days for something mailed within the state to actually get there. I mean, even if it wasn't mailed anyway. Just so you know, the Ohio legislature has also voted to end the grace period for mail-in ballots. Yay! And this meeting was also live streamed. So now we're going to go to Vote Notes. Vote Notes is from State Line and it's from November 25th, 2025. Homeland Security wants state driver's license data for sweeping citizenship program. Now, one of the things you should know, our Vote Notes is a much longer story. So you're going to need to go to our Vote Notes, either in the email or on our website, and click on the link to get the rest of the information. So just to give you a bit of an idea, the Trump administration wants access to state driver's license data on millions of U.S. residents as it builds a powerful citizenship verification program amid its clampdown on voter fraud and illegal immigration. U.S. Department of Homeland Security seeks access to an obscure computer network used by law enforcement to bypass negotiating with the states for the records. Yay! 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 That's all I have to say on that. I think that is fabulous because, as you know, some states are giving the Department of Justice a little bit of a hard time. So right now we're going to go to a quick break. When we come back, we will have our guest, Greg Stenstrom.
We need your help to ensure one vote for one legal voter. Join Fight Voter Fraud. Request training, get the potential double-registered, double voter data for your town, and donate to support the fight. Visit fightvoterfraud.org because election integrity starts with you.
Hi, and welcome back to SYNC-O-WICZ. Now, we are going to go to my guest right now. This is Greg Stenstrom from Pennsylvania. Welcome, Greg. You're going to tell us all the wonderful things that you have been working on since we spoke about at least 6 months ago is the last time we had you on.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here as always. And so much has been going on. I've been thinking about what I would do for the show. And first, I'm going to start in Pennsylvania. So in Pennsylvania, we've been fighting election fraud now for 5 years, since November 2020. Mm-hmm. And what we've been doing election after election is we have been calling to the attention of the federal, state authorities and the courts that the election machines in our state and most of the country are not certified. In Pennsylvania, there's not a single election machine, electronic election machine, that is certified for use in accordance with the federal and state statutes requiring certain testing, examination, verification that there's not malicious code, and not a single machine has passed that test. In fact, they don't even run the test.
How can they get away with that?
Well, they're getting away with it through a combination of clerks, politically appointed clerks at the different appellate levels, and quite frankly, corrupt judges. We've got very partisan, corrupt judges who have taken their robes off and decided they don't want to be judges. And what we've called to their attention, and it's taken the better part of 4 or 5 years to do this, is that when a judge takes his robes or her robes off and they go back into civilian clothes, they're no longer a judge. And the way that works is we have a statute and federal statute, I'm not going to quote it, it's 52 USC is the federal code for the testing of election machines. And it specifically says that all machines must be tested in accordance with the EAC, the Election Assistance Commission, and the vendor procedures. It's very, very specific. It says if you do not test every single machine before every single election, you cannot certify the election. Very specific federal code. And most of the states, including Pennsylvania, mimics that federal code, and they memorialize it into our state statutes. So in Pennsylvania, we have a corresponding state statute that says you have to test the machines in accordance with the certification. And if they're not tested, they can't be used. So our case in Pennsylvania, and it's this case across the country, for all machines have a test, and it's called a software validation test, SVT, software validation test. And what it is you'll hear people mention hash codes all the time. And a hash code is just basically a digital fingerprint for the software that's loaded on the machine and the hardware. And I think that's confused a lot of people. Like, you have to run a hash test. So a lot of people, corrupt election officials, have said, well, we run a hash test, but it's not the test that they're supposed to run. So what we found in Delaware County and throughout the state was that they're not running this test. As a matter of fact, in 2 different cases that we brought forward over the last couple of years, trying to call this to the public's attention and to authorities' attention, they've admitted it. The Secretary of the Commonwealth and the election officials in the state have admitted that they do not run the test, but nevertheless, the machines are okay because they say they're okay. These are part of.
Is there any recourse against the Secretary of State violating the federal law?
Yes. Okay. So I'm going to jump forward to. I have a case now, and I went to the judge on election day. They finally saw me. They brought in the Pennsylvania Supreme Court appointed a special judge to come in because I fight this in every single election cycle. I fight it every election cycle. I've got multiple cases that are still in the appeals courts from years past fighting this thing. So they brought in a special judge, and I explained it to him. I said, listen, the state kept saying their argument was, well, we run a test. Okay. And the EAC has said that it's okay. It's an equivalent test. And they don't have that. They have a memo, like a 1-page memo that's unsigned. It just says, from the EAC, it's okay to run your test. Basically that's their evidence. So I said, look, I'm going to make this simple for the judge, and I'm making it simple for everybody here that's listening. I'm a computer scientist. My background is in encryption, forensics. Linda, my background is pretty extensive. I work with the federal government. I've worked with at the highest levels of our government with regards to encryption. And I said, forget the hash codes. Take that all and put it out of your head. I said, every single machine, your laptop, the Zoom stuff that we're using now, or the StreamYard, your refrigerator at home, your toaster, your car, everything has what's called a hash code test in it. And it's what the manufacturers use to determine if the car, your toaster, refrigerator is running a particular set of software. That's it. So what it does is, I said, forget about the numbers. They confuse people with the numbers. There's, base 64, there's SHA-256. I mean, there's these terms that people hear and they blank out. I stop, la, 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 la. I turn my computer on, I send emails, and that's as much as I want to know for most people. But I said, basically, when you run this test, the software validation test, it's going to sing Yankee Doodle Dandy. That's what it does. I says, if you run this test, all you have to do is hit a button. It'll run the test, and it'll sing Yankee Doodle Dandy. That's what it'll do. It doesn't actually sing Yankee Doodle Dandy, but it puts a thing on the screen that you can compare to it. So just in your head, forget the computers, forget the hash codes and all that. Just say it's going to sing Yankee Doodle Dandy. So I line up all my machines, and it's that fast for my election machines for wherever county. I turn them on, and I run. Literally, it's a button push. You have to go down to a menu, hit the SVT, and it takes 60 seconds. Sing Yankee Doodle Dandy. It's good. Box it up, get it out to the polls. We can use this. Okay. That's how simple this is. Well, they run a test that sings Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. I says, you can't use the machines because you said, hey, look, it sang Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. I can make it sing any song I want if I'm using malicious software, but you can't get it to sing Yankee Doodle Dandy. So I said, all I want, and this was election day, I said, I dare you. I want you to have, the judge says, what do you want from me? I says, I want you to have the courage. You be the one judge in 5 years with the courage and the guts to take 2 machines, pick your machines anywhere in the county. I said, there's a lot of unused machines on election day. I said, this isn't any burden. Call a couple of precincts. They'll bring down the machines. We'll bring them in the courtroom. It'll take 1/2 hour to get them here. I'll go outside. I'll get a cup of coffee. Turn the machines on. Let's hit the button and see if it sings Yankee Doodle Dandy. And the judge was like, well, what's the point of that? I says, because you, me, and the defense knows that it's not going to sing Yankee Doodle Dandy. I already know that it cannot pass. The machines have malicious code. So I said, go to the last page. In this case, go to the last page of my filing. It was a 168-page filing. Simple, but I mean, it seems long, but it was just exhibits showing the things you had to do. Just go to the last page, and I purposely made it the last page so it would be easy to find. It says, open the back of the brief. He opens it up, and I say, you see that? There's 14 code modules there that are malicious. They do not belong on any production system. You wouldn't put them on your toaster. You see, I said, you wouldn't put them on your car. You wouldn't put them on your GPS. You wouldn't put them on any system that's important to you because they're malicious code. They provide connections to the outside. They change database code. I said, they are incredibly malicious pieces of code. I know those pieces of code are on the machines because when they ran their twinkle, twinkle little star test, they gave the output. And I went to the output and no one qualified has looked at the output. Now, this is what we've been doing for 5 years, Linda.
So did they allow you to have the machines brought in?
No. What he did is he denied it. And he said, we're going to go forward with the election. And we will have another hearing on January 16th. Next year. Wow. And he's a corrupt judge. I can say it because I've already accused him of corruption. I've already submitted multiple proof of his corruption as well. He's a corrupt judge. I'm not going to say his name on here, but people will look it up. I've made no bones about saying that these rulings are corrupt, that he said, well, he said during the hearing, like other judges, well, I can do whatever I want. He says, because the law is ambiguous. I says, no, the law is not ambiguous. I said, as a matter of fact, this is the law is it says you shall do this. And I said, as a matter of jurisdiction, our legislators in the Congress and our legislators in the Pennsylvania Senate and House, who are all lawyers, wrote this specifically saying you shall do this. You don't have any discretion to rule otherwise. And it says, if you do, you step outside of your jurisdiction. You have to have jurisdiction to make a ruling, which means you cannot take your robe off and say, well, I'm not going to comply with the law. Let me take my robe off. And now I'm a politician. I'm a communist. I'm someone who wants to subvert the elections. Okay. And now I'm going to say, nah, we don't care. We're not going to follow that law. At that point, you've stopped being a judge. Now, if we have time, I can briefly say, this has all gone all the way down to DC. Okay. And we're in where you've been in the playland, the playground that you're operating in DC most of the time. So we filed a thing called a KETAM, and it's a federal False Claims Act, FCA. And it's a $2.4 trillion case, the biggest case in American history. And we've got over 750 whistleblowers, senior officials. These are not like, the coffee clutch person in the courts. These are directors, senior directors, lifetime employees, SES senior executive staff. So we have disclosures that go back for 10 years showing that there's certain elements of our federal government who have been subverting elections and subverting law, subverting investigations, and that have basically been conducting criminal conduct. That included the Inspector General of the United States, which was Michael Horowitz. As a result of this litigation, he was moved. He was put in the Federal Reserve. Some people think that's a promotion. It's not. He went so they've moved him. And of the 117 senior officials, now we charged the Attorney General of the United States, the Inspector General, the directors of the FBI, deputy directors, U.S. attorneys.
you should preface this from the last administration, not from
From
this
the last
administration.
administration. Some of them are still in this administration. This is where I'm going to go with you. So this may be the 1 minute you use for the teaser. What they've done is President Trump has done a good job of removing people. And he's put people in positions of trust like Pam Bondi and Kash Patel. I'm using them as an example. Kristi Noem. Everybody here knows the people he's put into these high trust positions. Jeannie Pirro. She is the U.S. Attorney for the D.C. District, which is a very important role. They're being subverted right now by people that are still embedded in the Trump administration. One of them is the deputy director of the Department of Justice, works directly for Pam Bondi. He has been tanking her for the entire time she's been in, gaslighting her. And we explain how this happens, but in terms of having a 1 minute thing here, President Trump, within the federal organizations, there are still what we call a rear guard left behind by Biden, Obama. And these people have been subverting and undermining investigations. And one of the things they've been doing, and it's germane to what you've been doing down in D.C., is they're withholding funding from key players. So the people that are trying to work on the weaponization, which would be Ed Martin, Michael Gates, Mac Warner, Pam Bondi, Kash Patel, Dan Bongino, all these people that are trying to do what the president's said. Let's root out this evil.
And they are not able to move everything forward because of the issues that you were talking about. Now, we're sort of running very, 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 very low on time right now, but I want to make sure people understand that all this stuff that you've been doing, you have been doing pro se.
Yeah.
You have not been doing it with an attorney. I mean, this has been incredible, the amount of stuff that you have been doing. Now, is there a website that people can go to see your filings?
Yes. If you go to Patriot.Online, it's a social media platform. Pretty simple. There's a big donate button there. We would appreciate if you hit. Click on that donate button. It's easy to send us money. We need it. We don't have any support from any PACs. We don't have any support from the Trump administration, sadly. Although I've been co-defendants with Trump and won cases where his team has not. I don't know why we don't get the calls. But Patriot.Online is a donate button. And then when you click on if you click on mine, which is Gregory Stenstrom, my link, there's links all over the page to the different cases that we're doing, including the key TAM, which is, I think, the most important one that your listeners will want. And lastly,
definitely want people going there.
Yeah. Lastly, I've written a book, and it's called "I Stand on My Briefs: Pro Se Legal Warfare," and I think I've sent you some early copies, Linda, but it's in a final stage. It's been reviewed by quite a few people that are SCOTUS level attorneys and pro se advocates from around the country have been reading it, and it's ready for release. That'll be released within the next 2 weeks in time for Christmas, and you can buy that book.
Perfect.
But that will help. So, to wrap it up, I want to say thank you, Linda. I really appreciate what you're doing. I know what you're doing, and your listeners should know that you're very active down in D.C. You're active all over the country. And that I thank you for doing the show, and thank you for letting us come on every once in a while and let people know what we're doing.
Thank you so much, Greg. And we will have you on again in 2026. So thank you so much. Okay, so now we're going to go to my final thoughts. I know our program is a little jumbled this week, but I always want to save my final thoughts for the end. So Greg is just incredible with all the stuff he's working on. And obviously he said some stuff about me that most people don't know, which I will not repeat. But thank you for that, Greg. So last week when I left you, it was just before the holiday of Thanksgiving. A few people have questioned me as to how I fared on Thanksgiving, since I let you know that I was walking into socialists/communists and far left liberals. Oh my goodness. I was such a good girl. I behaved myself. I can't believe I actually behaved myself. And I actually had to say at least a dozen times, I don't want to talk politics. I'm not going to talk politics on Thanksgiving. Just wanting to make sure people know that the only thing I stand behind is following the law. So it was definitely pretty interesting. I did get one person so upset because I did not fall for everything that she was doing. Red-faced and very upset because I just wouldn't. I just wouldn't. It was just not the place. Now we want people to talk about different opinions. Do not do it during the holidays. Really. We all have the families that you have, some people on the right, and you have the others that are, I guess, Looney Tunes. That's all I can say. And when I've said in the past about people listening to the rhetoric and people hearing stuff that is not true, it's over the top. That is the big thing that we really need to do is we really need people to look at both sides and pick the correct side with the facts and with the evidence. That's the key thing is the evidence. And if you do one person at a time, don't get into arguments. Don't fall for, when they come out swinging, I voted Democrat and they're the best ones. And da, da, da. Listen, you listen, put a smile on your face. Like our Secretary of our Treasury, I love when he goes before Congress. You can see him just sitting there with a smirk on his face, and you can see the wheels turning in his head. And he always comes out with something that puts them in their place. Again, we need to have patience. You need to think of it as, again, I can't believe I'm going this route, but as a mental illness. You need to have compassion to a certain point when people have a mental illness, and it is out of control in our country right now. Now, what our organization and what our program wants to do is just have people understand election integrity. We want to educate the public on what we're doing. And our program on OBBM Network TV, that's exactly what we're trying to do. Is give you the facts and educate the public on everything that's going on. We cite our sources. We do. And I always come out with ones from both sides every week. Believe me, it's not easy. It is not easy. But that's what we need to do. We need to look at both sides. You need to come up with your conclusions based on fact. FACT. Now, I know the White House, in case people are interested, just came out with a new website for their media on the fake news. You might want to check that out because it is so prevalent. It is unbelievable. But I want people to understand that we are one nation and we only want U.S. citizens voting. That's it. Just U.S. citizens to vote for our country. And if you haven't guessed by now, yes, I am an incredible supporter of our commander-in-chief because he has the highest mountain that he has to climb every single day to try to right the things that have gotten screwed up over the last number of years. And I think he's doing one heck of a job. And as Greg Stenstrom, our guest, pointed out, he still has a lot of them that are working against him. You got to give it some time. It hasn't been a year yet, and he has accomplished an incredible amount of things, not only in our country, but around the world. So we're just this, little organization that's trying to have one vote for one legal voter. our program. Again, we want to educate people on elections, what's going on across the country, and every week have on people that are actually fighting the fight. These are people who have just been up against so much and have all the negative things thrown at them all the time, including us, including me. But you know what? We're going to get our country back, and we're going to have one vote for one legal voter. And that's it. So once again, I want to thank everyone for watching us on SYNC-O-WICZ on OBBM Network TV. You can find us on Rumble. You can find us on YouTube and a number of other social media platforms. And again, if you want to contact us, info@fightvoterfraud.org. We read all the emails. Thank you again, and we'll see you next week.